Hello and welcome back. I'm Arjun Vishwanathan, and today we are going to be in conversation with very, very eminent industry leaders to talk about how the pandemic infused disruption to traditional and geographical models of the concepts of work has mandated industry to radically reimagine how work is conducted. And this has affected the three fundamental pillars of what we know as the future of work, which is the workplace, the workforce, and the work culture. All three, as it were, standing fairly disrupted today. What has emerged from all of this also is the very fact that the distributed forms of work have resulted in IT and business leaders having to very radically reimagine and reinvent their security strategies. And to talk to me about all of that, and before I get ahead of myself, please put your hands together to welcome, in no specific order, Sudhir Kanvinde, the CIO for Supreme Industries Limited. Sudhir ji, welcome. Delighted
Namaste.
that you join us. Lovely. Atul Govid, old friend and the head for transformation and SAP at India Glycols. Atul ji, welcome. Delighted as always. And Anubhav Vahi, regional lead cybersecurity India and SARC at Cisco. Anubhav, welcome. Delighted that you could join us.
Thank you so much, and really happy to be a part of this session.
Thank you. Gentlemen, we've got an interesting 30 minutes ahead, and I can foresee how fascinating it is going to be. And therefore, without further ado, Sudhir, if I could come to you first, is with the developments in the concepts of the hybrid workforce, what, in your view, has been the evolution of the security paradigm that organizations are today perhaps mandated to craft and enforce to be able to truly be future-proof resilient?
Yes, so Arjun, the hybrid workplace will be the norm in many sectors, and it is a good thing. It will keep things moving when people cannot actually move around. So as we accept the flexible work structure, the threat landscape widens.
Indeed.
Work from home was very common for IT resources, like they can work from anywhere. In fact, almost on the weekends, some kind of this is started many years back. However, due to COVID and pandemic, even non-IT staff started supporting from home. This is how entire kind of shifting resources across from there. Some are working from the native place, some are from office, some are from a rental space. So strong password policy and two-factor authentication is there for quite some time. But we are looking beyond that, mainly at biometrics for security and identity and e-fencing as well. Back to you, Arjun.
No, interesting. That's quite well articulated because Atul, I'm going to come to you with the same thing. It's also obviously meant a very radical set of changes that organizations have had to put in place to be able to adapt to the concept of the workforce. So my question therefore to you is, how has security evolved without hindering in the distributed workspace of such the concepts of flexibility, experience, employee experience, or workforce experience, innovation, and the ability to collaborate seamlessly without hindrance?
Yeah, thanks, Arjun, for having me here today, along with other fellow panelists. I think in complete agreement that this corona pandemic, we all know it has actually created disruptions like never before. We've never ever seen such disruptions. On the other hand, if you were to look at from on a positive context, so the rate of adoption of digital has gone multifolds, has grown multifolds in the last 2 years. I think we have seen more digital adoption and tools, technologies being adopted and not just adopted, it's scaled within enterprises.
True.
And we would have ever imagined in to have been possible in 10 years, maybe time. Having said that, there's another positive which we all see that physical crimes, we used to hear about people barging in somebody's home, pickpockets and all that. That has reduced considerably. But on the other hand, cyber crimes have increased like crazy. And I was reading a report sometime back that even in less than a minute time, we find one or the other ransomware attack happening across the globe, which is truly it's a big number. Okay, and in such situations, it's just a matter of time when organizations they come up that no, yes, we are also breached. And in fact, people may not be aware that companies may not be aware, but they may already be compromised.
Yes, it's often said, isn't it? Or at least a couple of years back, it used to be said there are two kinds of organizations. One whose security has been breached, the others who don't know their security has been breached.
Exactly.
It's really all black, no black and white.
Yeah, correct. So and 2021 was no different. In fact, it's been a terrible year in terms of cyber crimes is concerned. And 2022, we hope that it will get better. But the way things are trending up, it may get worse as well. On talking about how have we coped up with this situation is one, of course, enabling remote working through setting up VPNs, remote desktops, okay, multi-factor authentication procedures and all that. So that's something which is there. Of course, use of video conferencing setups. But then at the same time, let me tell you, so these are like more for collaboration, okay.
Indeed.
But in terms of, because manufacturing, we are predominantly a manufacturing company. Manufacturing, it doesn't work only around collaboration. There has to be work which has to be done on the shop floor. So there has to be, the machines have to be operated. They have to be monitored. You need to manage inventory in and out of the system. You need to ensure that processing on the shop floor happens with that due degree of control.
All the more important in manufacturing because of the vast amounts of data that you're producing. And with your permission, Atul, may I just take that to Anubhav, because you just made a very interesting point. Atul, Anubhav, I must ask you this. You heard the initial set of observations. In your view, and given the visibility towards industry that you have, which is more outside in, how are you seeing the entire evolution of security kind of coming up, especially from the point of view of how you're helping folks protect very sensitive data and sensitive intelligence in the concepts of a geographically distributed workforce?
Sure. So I think there were a couple of good points that were made in the discussion a few minutes back. And I'll just pick up on one important foothold for all of this, which is the digital adoption. We all need to understand what was that transition that is getting the attackers to get more active and probably go and exploit more. Clearly, agility is the name of the game today. Because a lot of organizations, most of them being forced to get into a remote work scenario, had to go ahead and adopt ways and means to support their workforce to work from anywhere, which essentially meant that even organizations who had very stringent norms around remote work had to come along and make that happen. That's one. The second, the fact that their critical or their crown jewels, their critical applications also, in order to scale out, had to embrace public cloud adoption. Some organizations who were initially averse to this also went ahead and bit that bullet. What has happened now is the entire landscape that was very traditional in nature, which means your crown jewels stuck to your well-guarded perimeter, are now going to be accessed from anywhere, from any device, in order to offer that agility. And from a scale perspective, could be hosted on a public cloud. So that has been a major transition that organizations have to go about embracing. Now, to your specific question, what has really changed? What are those areas that organizations are very concerned about today? Well, let's start with the attackers first. Then I'll give an example of what Talus, which is Cisco's Threat Intel, talks about. We saw an increase in email security attacks during the COVID scenarios because a lot of organizations, a lot of people were keen to know more about COVID, statistics around COVID. So they built COVID-related themes and launched an attack. Now, you need to have the wherewithal to understand that if you're getting an email, which is from an untrusted source and is taking you to a website or a domain which is not trusted or malicious in nature, you should have controls in place to be able to detect it early in its cycle. That's one. The second thing the attackers have been after, and I think there was also a mention of this point around identity.
Indeed.
Account takeovers, credential compromise is becoming the name of the game. If I can, through some way or mean, get hold of your credentials, I have the key to your locker. I don't need to break anything. I will walk in and steal the credentials. So what controls do you need to bring in place to address that? And the last part, so the first two is more around securing the workforce, ensuring that you have controls in place, that a mobile workforce with an asset, which is a device which could be personally owned, you have the wherewithal to detect attacks early in the life cycle. Checks on identity, which becomes the guardrail to ensure that even if the compromise has happened, you've got a guardrail to ensure that you've got a double check on the identity, double check on the posture of the device before somebody accesses your crown jewels. The last part that has to be looked at is your crown jewels itself, which is your workloads, where you're hosting your critical data. How do you ensure that you have the eyes, the visibility to see, irrespective of whether the workload is on-premise or on the cloud, can you detect anomalous behavior on it? Can you detect deviation from the right posture that that asset has to maintain in a multi-cloud world? So controls around that have to be looked at. So it's a slightly long answer, but I hope
that's very pertinent, because Atulji, with your permission, I'm going to come to you, and then Sudhir, I'm going to bring you the same question, which is, therefore, in view of the fact that today security is clearly threatened by non-state actors, certainly state actors, how do you think office security will evolve? And Atulji, I'm coming to you because from the manufacturing sector, which is why Sudhir is also here. How will office security evolve? Now, my question also, therefore, is, will adapting to hybrid workspaces multiply vulnerability?
I think beyond doubt, because all these years, not just manufacturing, but other enterprises like ours, we've had a very regulated, controlled environment wherein you had these perimeter-based security setups, and wherein you had these multiple layers of security, right from the firewall, the SD-WANs, and then you had these intrusion control systems deployed. So which provided a layered security setup. But all that has gone, okay, because now you have a unprotected home Wi-Fi network. Indeed. Which is being used by maybe your neighbors as well, as much as you use, and so there's so much more. That risk has increased considerably. In fact, what we've basis a lot of research which we have seen, 90% of all security breaches, large ones, happens because of human errors. Okay, it could be human error due to omission or commission. When I say omission, we all know, but because of COVID-induced issues, and people are fearful of their job security, some of such individuals are also trying to create backups, data backups in their personal systems also, which is another form of a breach, because till so far, you had those controls within the enterprise. You could not print, you had limited access to, nobody at least in the home had access to what office systems had, what data you were carrying. But today, while people are working from home, you can always take a snapshot, you can take printouts, you can do whatever, generally, unless you have controls, policies in place. So what I would say is, of course, the traditional way of patching, you have to patch systems, because another study which clearly states that almost 57% of the breaches in systems happen because of unpatched systems or applications.
Wonderful. That's a brilliant point. If you could just hang on there. Sudhir, we've spent the first about, we are close to about 15 minutes into this conversation, and it's increasingly, as I'd expected, turning fascinating. My question, therefore, is, we realize today, as CIOs and IT leaders and as technology OEMs, we clearly realize that, no amount of security or protection is ever going to be adequate or commensurate to the levels and the sophistication of attacks in that kind of a scenario. As organizations move or march resolutely forward to becoming the intelligent enterprises of tomorrow, where should an emerging new generation of IT and security leaders even approach the whole domain of creating a security strategy that is resilient at its very core?
Yeah, so security is a concern for everyone and everywhere. It goes much beyond the office. It is not limited now to employees or employees at office or home, even factories. Like I come from manufacturing, Atul. So we have a lot of factories and SCADA systems. How you can protect those? Repeated audits required. So there is a supply chain, then vendor staff, external consultants come to office, sometimes comes to kind of factories. So,
Absolutely.
basically, the security, IT security leaders want to be at a threat prevention stage with a secured system, but that is not always possible. So, dynamic security system that can detect the threats effectively is important.
Actually, that couldn't be true because, Anupam, I'm going to bring that to you, which is the whole concept of how, as IT and security leaders, Atul or Sudhir will certainly build fairly effective cyber resilience blueprints. But in a sense, what they will look to folks such as you at Cisco will be the capabilities that they will look for that will help them build it in a more resolute, robust, and comprehensive fashion. What's your narrative on that particular piece?
Absolutely, you hit the nail on its head. Let me give you a perspective on capabilities, because you specifically use the word capabilities.
Absolutely.
Every organization today, every leader in an organization, technology leader in an organization is looking at adding new capabilities because they believe this capability is going to help them enhance their overall architecture from a security perspective. What they tend to overlook at times is that with addition of every capability, there is an element of complexity that comes into picture, right? You can, in security, there is no dearth of adding controls. You can keep adding as many tools as you want to, right? But who is going to be watching those tools? And who is sitting down to understand that if one tool or one control area is telling you something, this has to be acted on now before it percolates further into the organization and the attacker starts lurking in, right? And one of the problems that most organizations face today is the problem of fatigue. The fatigue could be cybersecurity personal fatigue, or we can call it alert fatigue. And that comes in as a function of number of capabilities you continue to keep adding because somebody tells you, if you do have this control, you're better off to protect against the attackers, not realizing that just adding capabilities doesn't help. What's the answer? What's the way out? One needs to look at recognizing the need of a platform which has eyes and ears across the controls that you have in an organization, a platform that gives you cross-vector visibility, a platform which is more outcome oriented rather than just collating information onto one dashboard, more outcome oriented in such a way that it has the ability to consume intelligence from any party. It should not be married to the OEM who's given you the platform. It should be able to consume threat intelligence from any party and go back and query your controls to ask them two simple questions. I am receiving intelligence about bad observables. First of all, question number one, do I see those observables in the network? Question number two, if I have seen those observables in the network, what am I doing with it? Am I blocking it, or I don't know what to do with it? If every organization has an answer to these two questions, which are very outcome oriented, they are better armed to drive threat detection and response in a more effective way, rather than doing a swivel chair across multiple control dashboards, multiple capabilities, as you called it, and trying to figure out, really, am I impacted or not? That's one. The second is, and I think Mr. Sudhir brought this up, the tools have to be efficient enough to bring in an element of automation. And that's where the platform comes into play. The platform should be able to help the organization build a few workflows where if I'm throwing in intelligence and I'm giving in observable information about bad domains or bad files, I should be able to write a workflow which says, okay, if I see this, please send an alert, maybe on Teams or on WebEx or whatever, to the end user saying, you know what, I am seeing something which you need to act on immediately. So that's my view to this.
In fact, it couldn't be true enough, because Atul sir, you and I, we've had conversations over the last almost 18 months, multiple times. My question to you, therefore, is now that we know that there are these realities uh, in a geographically distributed workforce, and there are obviously complexities and challenges, yet there are also significant opportunities. With a distributed workforce, the ability for an organization to identify digital skills wherever they may be based is obviously easier, and therefore lends itself to the organization. My question to you is, and for the audience that's tuning into us today, how should therefore organizations even approach the journey of building cyber resilience and securing the hybrid workforce, considering it's going to be a reality for a long, long time to come? And what are the imperatives that you would prescribe to a new generation of CIOs and IT leaders to build their security paradigms?
I think that's an interesting question, considering that regardless that whether we work from home or work from office, data security and cyber security needs are paramount, and they can't be compromised.
True.
And it's not just the CIO or the CFO or this CISO who's concerned. The board, considering these high-profile attacks which we have seen in 2021, right from the likes of the SolarWinds hack and the Panasonic, Kia Motors, you name it.
Nightmares, weren't they? Oh.
They're all very high-profile attacks, and these are the ones which we've come to know. And there are so many of them which we would not even know. It's not in the public domain. Having said that, I think one interesting aspect which I want to clearly call out is that all these years, we were apprehensive of adopting cloud, particularly in manufacturing. But now in the last couple of years, what we have seen is cloud-based solutions, even for cybersecurity. For cybersecurity, it's come up in a very big manner. In fact, we have adopted few of them. I can't name them.
Indeed.
But I can tell you the whole framework on having on-prem security solutions, applications has gone away. Because now that you are actually having a diverse workforce sitting across different geographies, it makes all the more sense that if you have a platform which is based on the cloud, and there you have everything gets routed through those platforms. So the whole issue of maintenance and making sure that you have the latest release, all that is taken care of with this platform-based approach based on the cloud. So the very weakness which we were thinking about cloud, that it's not as secure 4-5 years back, that's gone. So that is one area, adoption of cloud even for security applications. Second is, of course, what we clearly find is awareness. Indeed. Creating higher awareness amongst the workforce, because and doing those simulations that whether that awareness is effective enough or not. So because earlier what was happening, the situation was you had these one-off audits, third-party audits once in a year. Those were ceremonial. Okay, those are important, but now it's not about having those one-off audits alone. They may be required, but in addition to that, you need to have surveillance systems with AI and ML baked in, so that you also can address and identify some zero-day or any DDoS attacks which may be building up. So all those pattern recognition tools, and it's humanly not possible that humans or individuals, especially in domain companies like ours, to have that talent monitoring all of this 24/7. It's humanly not possible.
No, I couldn't agree more, and I'm going to take that to you. Sudhir, Alok, Atul is exactly stating what is the reality. Now, in your view, therefore, what is your prescriptive guidance to your peers and in fact, a new generation of folks that are emerging in the IT and security space on the imperatives and the foundational pillars of what cyber resilience in a hybrid work culture of sorts must contain?
So cyber resilience strategies have to be well embedded into systems and procedures. They have to be viewed as essential part of organizations' security posture. We have to work our way around the security strategies to ensure productivity, collaboration, and innovation involves a lot of information sharing, because otherwise it will be difficult and that needs to be secured. So data security is important in this context, but it cannot be considered a hindrance. The security strategies should in fact be viewed as enablers. With security strategies, you can be more innovative. That is required.
Very, very interesting. And therefore, my question to you, really, Sudhir, before I come to Atul sir, is as while being responsible for security, is the concept of a good night's peaceful sleep a reality?
Good question. So it's like it's like a wish list. Long and fantastic. But on a realistic note, we know that the threats will continue to increase and become more sophisticated.
Atulji, what's your take on that? Possible for somebody responsible for enterprise security to really sleep peacefully at night?
Come again, can you?
Is it possible for somebody who's in charge of enterprise security to really have a peaceful sleep at night?
I think it's all about, I think I'll quote what Anubhav mentioned. It's first of all, it's very important to understand what are your crown jewels and where do they reside? Where are they getting transacted? Okay. And once you have a good hold on those crown jewels and also have a backup strategy, a DR plan in place, I think you might as well have to sleep. Otherwise, even if that's not a situation, you anyhow can't contribute. Okay. So
very true.
So
no, that's absolutely true, because I do have a view on the clock, gentlemen. I know you've got hard schedules ahead. Anubhav, I come to you in conclusion. You've clearly heard industry speak about various expectations from OEM solutions providers such as yourselves, and one of them clearly at a very personal level is the ability to have sound sleep. How and what innovation at Cisco are you folks doing to help not just obviously CISOs and CIOs sleep better, but to enable Indian industry to march ahead in a more confident manner, in a more resilient manner?
Thank you for that final question, Arvind. I think what we've done is we've kind of moved this in a very phased manner. We've gone ahead and ensured that we build an architecture with our security technology solutions that we put together. And we've leveraged the industry practices. For example, zero trust is a very, very important practice. A lot of organizations have started adopting zero trust. And on similar lines, and I like the way you started this conversation with the 3 Ws. In your case, you called out the Ws as the workloads, sorry, the workforce, the workplace, and the work culture. We also call it the 3 Ws, but in our case, we call it the 3 Ws with the workforce, the workplace, and the workloads. And what we've done is we've recognized the importance of all these 3 Ws. We've got security controls that take care of all these 3 Ws, which is the workforce, to ensure good posture of the endpoint, ensure that we can provide them a clean internet using DNS security and a secure internet gateway solution, ensuring that there are no malicious software sitting on the endpoints with our EDR capabilities. So that's where we take care of the workforce. On the workplace side of things, we can give incremental capabilities from a behavior analysis perspective to see if there are insiders in the organization who could be posing a threat. They're lurking in the network, they're trying to exploit vulnerabilities. And the third is the crown jewels, wherein we could bring in capabilities like micro-segmentation. We could give them visibility in a multi-cloud world on one dashboard on any attacks coming in on their particular crown jewels or their workloads. So that constitutes our zero trust strategy with the 3 Ws. Now, what glues this all together are 2 things. Number one, can we have secure identity across these 3 Ws? And with our Cisco Duo solution, we've been able to bring in zero trust network access along with multi-factor authentication, adaptive multi-factor authentication, where you could go ahead and create policies to recognize that if an access request is coming in from a location where you don't really work in, you're not going to entertain it. If an access is coming in from a device which is not posture compliant, you don't entertain it. And if you want to give the flexibility and a better end user experience to your users by giving them a VPN-less access without compromising security, that's made available. So that's the first glue. The second glue is around really giving that comfort to the security team in the organization with a platform that we created called the SecureX. SecureX is an API aggregator. Every Cisco security customer is entitled to use it. You don't really need to buy it. That stitches this entire architecture together where you can get cross-vector visibility, you can do threat detection and response, and it has atomic workflows created to build in the orchestration function for you to bring in that level of automation. So that's what Cisco is really doing. And the icing on the cake is we recently announced an acquisition of Kenna Security, which looks at really prioritizing the vulnerability management that most organizations struggle with. What I've known is you may have a plethora of vulnerabilities to go and fix, but you can't scale beyond the first 10%. So Kenna Security helps you identify which of those vulnerabilities are really risky and they need to be fixed. So that's a quick snapshot of Cisco. What Cisco is doing.
Fascinating. No, actually, the evolution of how security solutions as well as the threat landscape seem to evolve. But unfortunately, much as I'd like to continue this, that's pretty much what we have time for in this particular segment. Sudhir ji, Atul sir, Anubhav, it has been nothing short of fascinating having this conversation with you. Deeply, deeply grateful. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Arjun. Thank you.
Thanks.
Anubhav.
And for the audience, that was I, Arjun Vishwanathan, in conversation on securing the hybrid workforce. That's pretty much from us from here. Stay tuned. We'll be back with the next segment in just a moment.